Hi there, Declan O'Toole here, Select Real Estate. In today's video, myself and Patrick speak with Gareth O'Neill of South Coast Development. We talked to Gareth a little bit about his background. You'll tell by his accent that he used to live close to myself back in Ireland in the day. Currently, his company are very involved during this COVID-19 scare with getting businesses back to work. They work with schools, hospitals and restaurants. Now we take for granted that you wear a mask, you social distance, keep at least 6 feet apart, and you clean surfaces. Gareth's company excel at cleaning air. Tune into the video and learn a little bit more. I certainly did. Thanks very much.
Okay, it looks like through the power of social media, here we are live again. This is the Wicked Awesome Report, broadcasting every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. or 10-ish, depending on what our technical difficulties are getting going. I'm Patrick Whaley, your friend in the mortgage business, joined by my co-host Declan O'Toole from Select Real Estate. Good morning, Declan.
Morning, Patrick. How are you this morning?
As we can see you over your shoulder, you're joining us from the ledge. So hopefully we'll be able to talk you back off of that. Great for you to join us while you're on vacation. Thanks for making time to tune in. And of course, we have our special guest, Gareth O'Neill from South Coast Improvement. Good morning, sir.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Patrick, Declan, for having me on. Like I said years before, watched your podcast, doing a great job. So delighted to be asked on and sort of share my story and sort of who we are.
Sure. Well, I guess we got to get the first question out of the way, because I'm sure many of our viewers are going to ask. That doesn't quite sound like a Boston or a Brooklyn accent. French. Okay. Very good.
So I hail from South Armagh originally. Been living here 10 years in Boston. Love it. That's how I actually got connected with Declan through BIBA, a few Irish networking events. We built up a bit of rapport, and that's how sort of we got connected, and the Irish connection coming full circle in the lovely state of Massachusetts.
Well, that's it. That's sort of like that old game, 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. You know, you're only seven connections away from anybody else in the world. And in Boston, especially in the Irish community in Boston, I think it's more like one or two or maybe 3 connections at most.
Well, there's probably a few Irish people that know you from, of course, apparently you played for Armagh, so the senior football team. So I was kind of curious about that.
And it's strange. There is a small, and as you know, Declan, there is a small community in Boston. It's pretty tight, but what I have noticed is the football or the GAA side doesn't really always intertwine with the general professional working in the city, young professional. There is sort of a bit of a divide there. However, to your point, yes, I was lucky enough to play for Armagh back in the day. Loved it and brought that with me to Boston, and currently play with Aidan McAnespies, and also help on the board there as well for keeping the club running. Not a great year though for all GAA fans, and
for us,
we look into the future, but do love having that sort of Irish home feel with the GAA, and even the other side of it, meeting yourself, Declan, on the professional side. It's really good to be in between them two worlds.
Yeah, so you're bridging the gap there between the business world and the sports world.
Yeah, and a lot of kids, what I try and do too, a lot of kids that come from Ireland who've been graduate visas or business visas. First Derivatives out in Uri is a company that's very close to home and have a lot of connections. So it's good when you see these guys coming over, don't know the city, don't really have a lot of connection. It's all work-based, so they tend to focus, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's good to get involved with them and take them out and, take them a bit out of their comfort level in terms of the city and show them really the outskirts and really the setup that GAA have in Boston. So, like I said, anywhere that I've been, I've played in Australia, New York. The GAA for me is one of the best organizations for really getting introducing yourself to people, and it applies no way different in Boston. Really.
For those that don't know, the Gaelic Athletic Association is the Irish, basically Gaelic sports in Ireland, and of course they've got a strong association over here in Boston.
Yeah. And so definitely the lessons that you've learned and have gone through in sport you're applying it to business here in Boston, and sort of
Yeah.
I certainly enjoy speaking to people that have played sports at any high level, and certainly playing for the county. I definitely put that at a high level, and seeing how they've applied the lessons that they've learned on the field into a business environment. So let's talk about that for a little bit. So tell us about your business background here in Boston. The header for today's post was talking about the pandemic environment and construction companies, and so you certainly tie into that. So there's more to you than just football, Gareth. So tell us a little bit more about professionally. What are you up to?
Yeah, well, not much more, but I'll let you let you know a bit more about
your boss might be tuning in to hear this, Gareth. So
he's there. He's probably going to commit that kick me, but no, definitely want to sort of. And when I seen your podcast, I thought it'd be really good if I ever got the opportunity to come on. So a bit about us. So obviously the construction background, but we're a bit of a niche company, and what I mean by that, we specialize in occupied space renovations. Especially in the senior living world. So as you can imagine, the worst industry right now being affected by COVID across the world, and the most vulnerable people is the senior living facilities. So with that said, when things, to give a bit of a timeline of how this all derived, when everything started to go in March, the company itself, obviously things started grinding to a halt. A brief sort of synopsis of myself and my journey with the company and sort of who we are. So I started with the company 5 years ago, site supervisor, rose to now project executive with the company. The company's been around for 20 years. We're based in Marion, Massachusetts, which is about 30 minutes south of Boston. No, sorry, 1 hour south of Boston. But we also have an office in Pennsylvania. We do work and look at projects of significant size. I would like to say outside the state of Massachusetts, from Maine to Florida, anything really east of the Mississippi, predominantly senior living clients. And there was no real direction for our company to go out to these different states. As you can imagine, working in Massachusetts hard enough. So to go out to Georgia, Chicago, plenty of contractors out there. It's not like, there's not the same construction companies out there in them regions. The reason why we were brought out to them is our process here, how we understand the occupied space and how these buildings actually operate. So, like I said, we came at March time and things grinded to a halt. So in Massachusetts, we do have different verticals. Obviously, I mentioned senior living. We do commercial real estate, and we do retail and education. And that's sort of
all those different verticals. Are they all occupied space, or are you doing brand new ground up construction?
No, that's how we developed. Now, we were lucky enough before the pandemic, I would like to say 3 or 4 years ago, we started to be a bit more diverse in our portfolio. We couldn't really rely on senior living. I'll be honest, we never seen a pandemic coming or something like this, but we knew we had to develop. So to your point, we do commercial real estate, currently in Beacon Street, Cambridge as well. So we've started to dabble in there. It's my job now to generate more business. The education stuff, there's good correlation between it and occupied space. There's summer slammers in summer, so there's good synergy there. And then the retail, something we do sort of not really do a lot of because the price point is difficult to get to with a lot of our processes and overhead. However, complex projects that require a quick turnaround, tight schedules, that's sort of our niche there. And we're not really the guy that competes with a truck. Again, a truck does multi-trades. So with the retail, we sort of go after larger projects in that front. And like I said, when March came and everything shut down, we sat together and we collectively started this journey on the thought process of, right, our top clients are senior living. How can we help our clients navigate out of this? Because as the world, if you draw a line now, the world's changing. It's not going back to the way we are. So now we've got to adapt and figure out the best way forward. So during a lot of brainstorming, we figured and flew in on shared R. So a lot of people are talking about redesigns, isolation units, constructing wee spaces, office spaces, you know. So everyone's jumping at this immediately. However, they're costly things to do. And I'm not saying they're not going to go that direction. I think they eventually will do, but it's not going to solve the problem to the immediate effect. So what we looked at then was the shared air. Predominantly in the senior living world, they're all shared air systems, or at least 90% shared air. The other side of it is PTAC units, where they have their units in the window, let's say, like you'd see in a hotel room. A lot of these buildings are designed for either commercial space that's then renovated into more or less medical grade for some of these senior living buildings. So predominantly they're not designed for that healthcare aspect, and hence why they have a lot of shared air or single PTAC units. So we started going down that route, and what predominantly a lot of people did was the UV light technology. That's the hot trigger right now. You'll see that in hospitals, you'll see that there. A basic summary of that system is it's a piece of technology with a, like it is, a UV light bulb. You put it into the duct system, it kills the pathogens and the viruses as the air flows through, caught in the filter. However, as we got into that, we noticed a lot of negatives. Cost being one, maintenance being the other, and got to change the bulbs. Bulbs are expensive, you know, dedicated circuits to these, access points. Doing these in an occupied space in a senior living didn't really seem like something we wanted to give to our client. So what as we dug in more and figured out, we found this iWave technology. We got our in-team engineers on board, we got the reps, we took it apart to see, was it as good as what we said before we started promoting. And I have to say it was. There was no part of it let down. They supplied us with all the data. They supplied us with all the third-party testing. The system itself is much cheaper, a lot easier for install, and it does more than what the UV light. And I'll give a quick point of what the UV light does, or the iWave does compared to the UV light. It kills particles in the air, which the UV light doesn't do. And that's like dust particles in a ray of light through the window. So once again, that's cleaning the air. Then it'll also go after the pathogen and virus, which the UV light does. They have third-party data, like I mentioned, which I'll share if anyone wants to see it. And their testing results, as stands now, shows that it works for other strains of coronavirus very successfully. Corona, MERS, SARS. If anyone tells you at this point, there's testing out there to prove that it kills the strain that we're dealing with right now, I would strongly suggest, or looking in more research, I don't believe it's accurate, because no one has the time at this point to really figure it out. The company iWave have released a press statement saying they're working on it, but they do believe, off the results of all of them, it will play a positive role on alleviating the pathogens in the air.
Yeah,
the other
so
thing it does as well.
It's not a guaranteed elimination, but it's a huge step in the right direction.
No, well, I'm looking at some of the results here, just to jump, like tuberculosis, within 60 minutes in the chamber, it was 69%. Norovirus, it was 93.5 in 30 minutes. MERS, 96. E. coli, 99.68.
Yeah, that's percentage of that has been eliminated from the air, is what you're saying.
That is kill rate. And that's in a scientific setting with a chamber, and they're doing that, and it's each time difference. And once I'll send you both the data on it, and you'll be able to see. So it has backed up scientific good success on these other strains of corona. The other side of it is, and it's actually actively in Boston Children's Hospital, so that's really good to note as well. Predominantly this was, I think, an odor related product. Yes, it has the benefits of what I just described. A lot of the testimonials geared towards odor, but why is that an extra benefit for us especially? The UV light doesn't do that, one, but in senior living facilities, what an added bonus that is, because as we know, older people, working in these facilities, very busy facilities, there is sometimes a tend to be an odor problem within them. And this is a product you simply install in different variations in your systems, which is backed up and stamped by our engineers to give the end user and the owner some juice. To really say to the end user, maybe your staff in the buildings, may it be in your world where it's a full high-rise building or a full building that's on a shared air system, that it gives the ownership the leverage and the ammunition for their sales and marketing to really go and say, hey, I'm giving you, the resident staff, the best quality air that's possible on the market to date right now.
So Gary, at a very, very simple level. So I'm working, let's say I'm working as a caretaker in one of these the senior living facilities. So I breathe the air, there's an intake, it goes in, cleans the air, and then blows it back out. Is that how the system works? I mean, is that it goes through an I-wave unit?
Yeah, to break it down in layman's terms, because that's predominantly where I work in. So really you have, let's say, your rooftop unit. It'll then blow out the air, which right now all that is in between that and your ducts is filters, which are supposed to change periodically. That's common. But this device is placed within the system, right where the air is being imported out and before it hits your filter. So the ionization of the system, and without getting too scientific, they attach to the particles, to the viruses, and they either kill them, weigh them down with a catch in the filter, or if they do get past the filter, it creates more of a weight to that, and it draws the pathogen, the virus, it draws the particles down, so it more or less gets cleaned with daily cleaning, which is supposed to be done in these facilities. So if all that meshes into one, you're doing the right thing and putting the best foot forward. Now, I have to be clear here and why it's important. I'm describing a lot of the positives about the technology. So a lot of people have said it, and we asked ourselves, this is the point, the technology speaks for itself once you see the data. But where do we fit in? You know, why can't in your own house, Declan, let's say you want to put this in, and we have employees have done it just to test it out on our end. You can. Now, you will get probably a wee bit of a higher price with a HVAC company. You do have to go through a HVAC company to procure the technology, but it's not a big deal. I think you can get it, some of the more residential stuff online. So my point being is, like, where do we step in? I touched on it in terms of giving the ownership some backing in terms of engineer review. So we'll have our engineers look at your as-built drawings, sight unseen. We'll determine your system. We'll determine how much technology and which technology you have to use, because there's 3 models to implement in. You would then get this revised on your drawings, stamped by the engineer, and then handed to you on closeout. And why that's important is, excuse me, it's just validating what we've done and gives the owner, like I said, this piece of paper that says, hey, we put this in, this is how we've done it right. The other side of it is, in, let's say, the senior living world, these facilities don't stop. They just keep going. You have residents maybe in a memory care or assisted living, skilled nursing, you know, that don't really stop. So that's why we specialize in what we do, is coordination, process. The HVAC company isn't going to want to deal with, right, we can do 4 or 5 units at a day. These residents have to leave this day. There's a lot of behind the scenes movements and in terms of organization that needs to be done in order for this to flow. We meet our target of what we agree we can install, and everything flows. We get in and out as quick as possible of what we agree and what we decide at the time collectively we can do it.
So it's a whole project management system you're bringing into the install.
Yes, that's where we specialize really in. We bring our knowledge of working in these real high difficult areas and bring that to the table. So you, as the end user, Patrick, you just sit. We look at the pricing, we'll have open book, we'll show you the numbers coming back. You'll say, right, that fits within our budget, or we work together to try and make it work. Then we start the process, and we'll meet the ED or the building manager. We'll have the owner there, roundtable discussion, which space can we have, rooftop, when can we go on the rooftop, what's the access. So there's a lot of people don't underestimate the coordination that is in a building that is constantly running. And that's probably a good point to say, well, that's great in senior living, where does that affect me? Or how does the translation to your world in real estate and residential setting? But you apply the same mechanics. If you have a large building in Cambridge, Declan, that you're brokering, you have 15 tenants, they're living there, they're self-isolating, and we need to get into their rooms because they may have a PTAC unit or they may have a system that's within their rooms, then that would be ideal to take us on board and have us manage the whole process, how we get in and do that. If I'm being honest, if you have a single family and a single house and you're the sole, we don't really need to be involved. Definitely I'll be here as a resource to bounce off and give you all the information and technology, but I'll be full disclosure and say, hey, it's probably not something that we need to be involved with. Of course, if you want to go forward, we'll look at it, but it's more designed for larger occupied space.
Just infinitely more moving parts, more people involved.
Yeah, and you think of a high-rise downtown in Boston, and that's where I went with it. It's like, and even office spaces, this is where it all correlates. And
what about restaurants?
And restaurants as well, even schools, Declan. So now, like, what I found now is everyone is so wary of what's out there. Everyone loves what I'm pitching to them when I talk to them. But the decision making and the pulling the trigger is the hard part right now, because people want to stretch it out to see where this is going. To your point on the office spaces, massive. Like, you look at WeWork and their model, you know, it's fully shared space. You know, they talked about rejigging the areas, having the 6 feet in distance. Theory, that's great. Practical, I'll be honest, I think that's a struggle to manage and really implement. So why not really go and look at the real intricate building systems and focus in on them? There is short money items, and I did it like a pyramid scheme or pyramid system where I had the bottom tier is where you can do microbial paint, touch points like switches and faucets. This is all short money items like the building manager could maybe do and handle. We do offer that, but it's something that any end user is going to want to first do in their sites. Then shortly, if not most importantly, with along that was the shared air. Because at the end of the day, the best way to look at coronavirus and how it really operates, and there's a lot of misinformation out there, but I believe that it's, when you look at one of the boats at the early stages, the large vessels where people are going on cruises, it rapidly went through that. And the reason being is it's all the same air that people are breathing is being filtered through that ship. So it's airborne, it's traveling. So right now, regardless of what side of the house you believe in the science of what's being out there, it still at the end of the day gives the end user, the owner of that space, whoever's leasing that space, ammunition to say, I don't care what you believe in or what here is, I am, as an owner, I'm giving you hospital grade air and hospital grade sound. And what it does is instill trust in everyone across the board. So when you're maybe looking at renting a place, for you now, and I don't know, maybe it's a question back to you guys, is what are you seeing right now in the residential market? Like a lot of, remote sort of, walkthroughs, stuff like that. But imagine you went and said, hey, this owner or the property owner has now added technology in this space to give you the best air. For me, buying a house or renting, I would like that, but I don't know.
I'd say it might help in downtown condos, and you're seeing a trend away from the cities, and certainly some of the higher end. I mean, they're still somewhat moving on the low level, but I've seen condos for 1.5–2 million plus. They're just not moving, and the people are not moving into the city, and a big part of that is part of it's sharing elevators, etc., but mostly you're sharing air. You're interacting with people. There's a big, so I could see it being helpful, in a situation like that in apartment buildings, obviously as well as office space.
Some of the things we've talked about on previous shows and interviewing other people, about the pandemic, it's the social distancing. Okay, that's great. That has a certain amount of benefit and security. And it's, cleaning spaces with all the different cleaning solutions and wiping down surfaces, and that's great. But really, Gareth, this is the first conversation that I've had about cleaning the air. I mean, and now it's like the blinding flash of the obvious. Well, yeah, of course, there should be better filters in the air. It's not just wiping down the countertops and staying 6 feet away from somebody. If you're in the same room, you're breathing the same air, or you're breathing the same air that someone was in. The air is cycled through and recycled. Yeah, there should be, maybe some people take it for granted, but yeah, there should be some better filtration system to give you cleaner air to breathe. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you have a mask on your face or not. You're not holding your breath, walking through the office building or the retail store. So those, so what you're saying makes absolute perfect sense.
Mm-hmm. And I've done, and I'm sure you all have done, a lot of online webinars, Zoom calls, and like I said, everyone's jumping on the complicated design to make it a perfect world scenario. And what I mean by that is, let's take senior living again. They're talking about now creating isolation wings. So if an outbreak ever happens again, they can transfer or shut the place down. Brilliant idea. I do think it will get to that eventually, but that's major money. That's you're talking a lot of money to do that. So I think, and I've always promoted this, is scale it back. And that's why I sort of love our company, because moments like this, and it's really a personable, one-on-one, a lot of communication in that senior living world that we bring off over to the other verticals, and we create and try and add value with doing innovative ideas like this, and not just like winging it. Like I've had conversations with the reps on this. We haven't just said, right, we like this, we're going to move forward. We did our homework on this. We did our cost analysis on this. And to that point, I think it's interesting to note, we did a case study, taking one of our projects, same square footage, and we did a UV light. How much would it be to do the UV light system in that space? And it worked out 62,000 for the UV light through a HVAC company, equipment and install. We did the same with the iWave, and it was 10,500. Wow. Now, obviously, there's added costs to our stuff and other facets to it. But even if they're the two major components, and the other stuff, what I'm alluding to is, if you're going to put in this technology, you want a clean and duct system. You want to change all that. You want to, like, once you do this, you may as well spend the money and do it right. So I'm doing this for 2 office spaces right now in Braintree. E. Cratchit, non-profit accountancy firm, great company. Leonard Van Hearn and Green, accountancy firm in Braintree as well. And small office size, but the price point to them and going through their system is so much lower than what it would have been to do UV light.
And you're saying it's a more effective system at the end of the day as well?
It's my opinion, the research and the comparison between the two, it's a much better system. There's no maintenance on this thing. You think about the maintenance component. You're doing yearly maintenance. The bulbs could be $100 to $150 for the bulbs. You're changing them out. You have to put them, I'm not going to say the figure. I'm going to be hypothetical here because I don't have it in front of me, but you have to space them a certain distance, maybe 20, 25 feet. So there's a lot of maintenance, and also access panels for us, dedicated circuits. You're going to have to pull an electrical permit. There's so much more juice in doing that, where this is just standalone. You connect it up into the system, the electric components into the HVAC, and the maintenance, there's a 15-year warranty on the cleaning motors, self-cleaning, and there's 3-year on the product overall itself. But what we do, again, and sort of touch on the other items, I went, and for that, them 2 office spaces, I've got duct cleaning prices, which a HVAC company isn't going to do. Your HVAC company is either install or do the HVAC, or you have a HVAC service, which primarily looks at service in buildings. And then you've got duct cleaning company, which is a separate thing. So that's the other side that people don't really understand. You can just come to me with one umbrella, send me your as-bills, I'll get you a number within a week, ballpark, hey, it's going to be 20K for you're looking at 20K. If they move forward, we'll narrow that down, but we're always very conservative with our budgets to protect who our budgets for.
Are you retrofitting a lot of the buildings that you would have done before? Like you've obviously worked on, prior to 2020, you've had another number of buildings you've done a lot of work. Are you going back and retrofitting some of those with the iWave, or is a lot of what you're doing retrofitting?
Oh, that sort of connects to my point about everyone loving it and not really pulling the trigger yet. There's different reasons for that. Some may be funding, different funding structures. Some maybe it has to go to the hierarchy, the board, and a decision has to be made. Maybe I'm talking to the capital project manager or something, or the construction manager or good development manager. It has to go to the owners for approval, and it's really people stamping. They're afraid to put the best foot forward, because I think originally, Declan, the hope was this would go away, and I know we're probably in tune with Europe and how things are going with our connections back at home. Patrick may so either. This was never going away. So I think it's going to get towards a point, and I'm thinking towards the end of the year from now to Q3 and 4, where people are going to have to start, making decisions on what they're going to do.
Yeah, they're going to come to the realization that they need a more permanent solution. It's not just sit back and wait for it to go away.
Exactly. Yeah.
So do you see that? So that's just in terms of then, if you're looking at this technology, if your prediction for the future, you see that this is something that's going to be used a lot more wide scale, or what? Have you seen any indications that it's going in that direction?
You know what? I think it's too early for me to see everyone's going it, but just using common sense, and just to Patrick's point earlier, like Patrick just mentioned, he's never spoke about shared error. That blows my mind. Now, obviously, I'm knee deep in all the information and seeing it, but when you take a step back and really think about it, it's pretty crazy. Like I said, one of the employees here put it in his house, the residential version, the residential model. I want to do it in my house. And it's important to note too, is like, we're not just putting in these systems because you can't see anything. I think the only thing you can see, because it's in your duct system, you can't obviously see error. So the only way that we know it is working in some of the employees' houses, they don't see that dust particles. And I'll be honest, I have a dog, and I see, and I think everyone sees that sort of speckle in the light. They said they don't see that anymore. We do offer, and we do want to take, if we put this, let's say, in E. Cratchit's office, and I'm going to do some marketing material on this, is we're going to take results at the start. We're going to, and there is third-party testing to show where it's actually improved the error. We're going to take the results at the start and try it maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, let the system just get going, and show the end user that, hey, this is working, even though you don't see anything because it's in the ductwork.
Well, that's the point. You're not supposed to see anything. If you do see
something, but it's hard for people.
You know there's a problem.
Yeah, it's hard, and this is the other hard part of it too for the decision making, is it's the feeling you put 50 grand or 20 grand, you don't see anything. You build a shed out the back, 20 grand, you see it, it's tangible. You know where your money's going. Whereas this, you can't touch it. So that's another side of it, where it's more getting over that sort of hurdle. But my argument to that is really, you have the ammunition now. No one can come back ever again and say, well, you never gave us, the best, but you never helped us in the pandemic. As an owner, just to really instill trust and really show you're putting the best foot forward. For me, I think that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and you've got the scientific results to prove that it works. So it's not just you saying it's the best and it does X, Y, and Z. You've got the proof to back it up. Further
discussions, like right now, I'm doing a lot of medical, I'm doing a lot of pricing for buildings throughout the East Coast. Because I did mention before, I'll just clarify, we do work up and down the East Coast, Eastern Mississippi, for predominantly large, big renovation projects, because that's sort of, we can't go for $100,000 job in Georgia, let's say. But for something like this, to build a relationship with a healthcare company or someone with buildings, we're definitely open to looking at that. And we've already a partnership with a HVAC company in the Fort Lauderdale area in Florida. We have a $10 million project down there. So this is something that we are going to look in our geographical footprint to implement.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, unfortunately, based with the pandemic, it sounds like there's going to be need for this for quite a while into the future. Like we said, it's not going away.
No. And what have you heard, just to throw it back in your angle, like I said, you probably did the Zoom calls, you've probably, did your research, because that's predominantly all we can really do right now. What are you seeing in terms of residential brokerage size? Like what's the market look like for you?
Yeah, so Declan and I, we've done a couple of shows and we've talked to a number of people, and there definitely there is. The numbers will prove it. There seems to be an exodus out of the densely populated urban areas going to more suburban and exurban, the next ring out. So in the Metro Boston area, that's, beyond 495. So, further out, beyond just the typical, half hour, 20-minute drive to downtown, beyond that. And I think from a psychological standpoint, you look at it like that, I think that makes sense, because people don't want to be that close to their neighbors. They want that open space. They want that fresh air. They want that backyard, rather than being 10 or 15 feet away, one wall away from their closest neighbor. And I certainly have.
And they're not anticipating going into the office.
What's that, Declan?
They're not anticipating going into the office every day either.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
That's
So part of the whole the shift to work from home, you have so many people now that are maybe more permanently going to be working from home, or maybe only, a couple of days at the office. So there's less need to be that close to the downtown environment. So I've certainly seen that just anecdotally with clients that I'm working with that have the desire to move out. But the statistics we're looking at, that's playing out to be true. And I know, Declan, you're working with some clients that are, similar fashion, that are pushing out, and you're doing a lot with, rental management as well in apartment buildings and condo buildings. So you might be a little bit closer to the pulse on that than I am even.
Well, on the rental side, I know certainly if you look at the neighborhoods that are around the colleges, they're not renting as much. People aren't moved. The tenants that are there are staying, they're not moving, first off, because they're not moving from apartment to apartment. But the other part of that is, and we still don't know who's, some of the colleges have decided that they're going to go fully online.
Mm-hmm.
You've got situations where I know landlords, they're sitting with empty apartments, which was never the case before now. So, who would have known that? But that's so that, again, unless they have to move into the city, or move closer, even in the college situation, which I think is interesting, because I think my college education, it wasn't about what I learned, it was more about the experience. So yeah. that's then if you're not getting that experience, restaurants aren't open. So there's a lot of unknowns that, even that side of it, the rental side of it is actually very slow in those areas.
Yeah. So the phrase I've been using a lot, it's going forward, it's business as unusual.
Very true.
It's a learning curve for everybody. So I think maybe we should start wrapping it up, Gareth. You've been very generous with your time here. We're going on, I think, close to 45 minutes here. So,
well, like I said, just on my side, thanks again for having me. The opportunity to speak to both. Good to be on your podcast. If anyone, or if yourselves, what I'll do after this, I'll send you both a Dropbox link with all the data. You can scan through it. If there is anyone on your podcast that's interested to hear more, I prefer doing a Zoom or something so I can take them through and give them a visual. But happy for you guys to pass my details, phone number. Happy just to have a call and give people a heads up.
Well, if you don't know, Gareth, you're tagged in the post here on Facebook, and I know Declan will be clipping the video and sending it over to LinkedIn, and I'm sure he'll copy you on that as well. So you're definitely referenced here in the show notes, if you will. So Facebook would be an okay way to reach out to you if someone has questions through that.
Certainly, LinkedIn is more preferred, but definitely I'm not going to not talk to anyone through Facebook. A lot of my business connections obviously is in the LinkedIn. But sure. If you're doing that, Declan, and putting it up there, perfect. That works well. But I'll email you both the links so you can have a look at it too.
Yeah. So anybody that's interested in seeing some of that data, you can reach out to Gareth or reach out to Declan and I, and we can share that with you. And again, thank you for this insight. It's just, I don't know, again, blinding flash of the obvious here, just not something that I had considered. Just everyone's talking about 6 feet apart and wiping down surfaces, just not thinking about the air. I mean, sure, you're wearing the face mask, but not thinking about cleaning the air that you're breathing as well. So thanks for making me feel like a complete idiot not having thought of that earlier. But
no, it's a new world. I wouldn't go that far. It's a new world. So.
No, it's definitely good to have that perspective and bring your expertise to the table, Gareth. And I sincerely mean it. I certainly hope you'll join us again. Maybe we can get an update, a couple of months out, and you can give us some more insight as to what you've seen, sort of how this trend develops. So that's an open invitation for you. So if we can get you on again sometime in the future, we'd love to have you.
Happy to.
Okay, fantastic. So let's wrap it up, call a conclusion to the show. Gareth O'Neill from South Coast Improvement, thank you very much for joining us today, sir. And thank you, Declan O'Toole, co-host here of the Wicked Awesome Report. Thanks for joining us. I am Patrick Whaley, your friend in the mortgage business, and want to thank everybody for joining us here on the Wicked Awesome Report, broadcasting every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. or 10-ish, depending on our technical difficulties to get started. Give us a comment, a like, a share. Head over to the Facebook page for the Wicked Awesome Report, and you'll be notified next time of our live video. So thanks for tuning in. Until the next time, hope everybody out there stays awesome. Take care.
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Declan. Have a good day.